Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something that might just transform your English speaking skills: shadowing. You might not survive this at first, it's intense, but that's how we grow, right? Shadowing isn't just a fancy term, it's a technique that's been proven to help you speak more naturally, and it's something you can do right now, from the comfort of your own home. But before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world, so feel free to drop that in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The power of shadowing. Have you ever listened to someone speak and thought, "I wish I could sound like that"? Maybe it's a favorite movie character, a podcast host, or even your best friend. Here's the cool thing about shadowing: it lets you do just that. By mimicking native speakers, you can reshape your speaking habits, making your English sound natural, fluid, and yes, even a little like them. Imagine how much easier it would be to hold a conversation if you could imitate the flow, rhythm, and intonation of a native speaker. That's the power of shadowing. But what exactly does this mean? It's not about rote memorization, but about learning through imitation. This is a technique where you repeat what you hear immediately after hearing it, trying to match the speaker's tone, pitch, and timing. The results are impressive. Over time, you'll start sounding more like a native speaker, but most importantly, your confidence will skyrocket. And let's be honest, confidence is half the battle when speaking a new language, right? Now, I know what you might be thinking: this sounds too easy, right? The truth is, shadowing is deceptively simple, but it requires consistent practice and a little bit of patience. But trust me, once you get the hang of it, you'll start seeing real progress. Now that we've got you hooked, let's break down exactly what shadowing is and how it works. What is shadowing? Shadowing is a technique where you mimic a speaker's words, tone, and rhythm in real time. Think of it like being a parrot, only a smarter, cooler version that's actively learning instead of just repeating. You listen to a native speaker and immediately repeat what they say, trying to match their pronunciation, speed, and cadence. It's like trying to become one with the language, immediately syncing your brain and mouth to the words you hear. You might be wondering, why not just memorize phrases or read them off a page? The difference is that shadowing makes you active in the learning process. Instead of just passively absorbing information, you're engaging both your listening and speaking skills at the same time. And here's the thing: language isn't just about knowing words, it's about how you say them. Shadowing helps you pick up on all the nuances like intonation, stress, and rhythm, things that don't always show up in textbooks. By consistently shadowing, you also improve your muscle memory. Your mouth and tongue start to get used to the new sounds, and your speaking becomes more fluid over time. It's almost like learning how to ride a bike. At first, it's a bit wobbly, but with practice, you can cruise without even thinking about it. But here's the catch: shadowing isn't about perfection, it's about progress. If you mess up, don't sweat it. In fact, the more mistakes you make, the faster you'll learn. The key is to keep going, repeating after the speaker, and slowly but surely, you'll start sounding more and more natural. Remember that feeling when you finally got the hang of a new song on the guitar? Shadowing gives you that same sense of accomplishment, except you're doing it with words. And before long, you'll be singing, well, speaking, like a pro. Alright. Now that you know what shadowing is all about, let's take a step back and discuss something crucial: listening. Because before you can speak like a native, you need to hear like one. The importance of listening. First, imagine you're driving a car for the first time. Would you want to take the wheel before you've even seen a map? Probably not. Listening is the map that guides your speaking journey. It's like laying down a strong foundation before building the house. Without listening, your speaking will be, well, all over the place. Before you start shadowing, you need to understand what you're trying to say. That's why listening is the first step. When you listen to a native speaker, you're not just hearing words, you're absorbing how the language flows, how the words connect, and how they're pronounced. Only then can you start shadowing and imitating those sounds. If you try to shadow without a good listening foundation, you might end up mimicking sounds you don't fully understand. And trust me, you don't want to sound like you're guessing. It's not fun for you, and it's not fun for the person you're talking to. Listening helps you build that mental blueprint of how sentences sound in English. You'll start recognizing patterns, like how a question might rise at the end of a sentence or how certain words are stressed. And once you've listened enough, these patterns will feel like second nature when you start speaking. Think about it. Have you ever listened to a song so many times that the lyrics just roll off your tongue? Shadowing works the same way. The more you listen to natural conversation, so whether that's in podcasts, movies, or daily English conversation, so the easier it will be for you to speak naturally. And here's the secret: when you actively listen to native speakers, your brain starts to rewire itself to understand English better. Over time, you'll notice that the words start making sense faster, the accents become easier to decode, and the meanings behind idiomatic expressions aren't so foreign anymore. So, before you start shadowing, take the time to really listen. Make it a habit to focus on the sounds, the rhythm, and the intonation of native speakers. That's your first step toward truly mastering the language. Now that you understand the importance of listening, let's dive into another crucial part of shadowing: choosing the right materials. You don't want to dive into a super complex movie script when you're just starting out. Let's find content that suits your current level. Choosing the right materials. When you first begin shadowing, it's essential to pick material that matches your skill level. Imagine trying to shadow a TED Talk on quantum physics when you're still getting the hang of basic greetings. It's going to be overwhelming. Start with something simpler, like dialogues from beginner podcasts, children's shows, or even language learning resources. These materials will provide you with the right balance of vocabulary and natural speech patterns. The goal is to build confidence, so don't rush. You don't need to tackle complex language right away. Instead, focus on material that's slow enough for you to follow, but also natural enough to expose you to real conversational English. Audiobooks are a great option too, especially books with a steady pace and clear articulation. But here's a pro tip: don't just go for any random content. Try to choose something that excites you, whether it's a TV show you like, a podcast on your favorite topic, or even a YouTube video about something you enjoy. The more engaging it is for you, the easier it'll be to stick with it. If you're bored, you won't want to shadow for long. As you progress, you can start incorporating more challenging material, like news broadcasts, TV shows, or movies. But here's the thing: always make sure that the content you choose mirrors the real world. Many textbooks or language courses can be a bit stiff. People don't actually speak like that. To get the most out of your shadowing practice, focus on real conversations. Listening to casual exchanges will help you get used to things like contractions, informal phrases, and everyday vocabulary. And when you get comfortable, feel free to expand your horizons. Shadow a variety of accents, voices, and speech speeds. It'll help you become more versatile in understanding different English speakers, whether they're from New York, London, or Sydney. So, grab that content that excites you, and start shadowing with confidence. The more enjoyable the material, the more motivated you'll be to stick with the practice. Now that you've chosen the right materials, it's time to dive into the process of shadowing itself. Let's break down how you can start this practice and make the most out of every session. How to start shadowing. Starting with shadowing is simpler than you might think, but like all skills, it takes a bit of getting used to. The first thing to remember is, don't rush. You're building muscle memory, and just like learning to play an instrument or ride a bike, it takes time. So, let's take it slow and steady. Here's how you can get started. Pick a short audio clip. Start small. Choose something that lasts around 30 seconds to a minute. It could be a scene from a TV show, a short news clip, or a segment from a podcast. The idea is to not overwhelm yourself. You'll have plenty of time to extend your sessions later. Listen through once without speaking. Just listen. Focus on understanding the general meaning. This step is your preparation phase. You're getting familiar with the speaker's voice, their tone, the pace, and the words used. You might not catch every word, and that's okay. Pause and repeat. And now comes the fun part. Play the first sentence or short section again, and as soon as the speaker stops, repeat immediately. Don't wait too long. Try to match the speed and rhythm of the speaker. It's important that you sound as natural as possible, so don't worry about perfect grammar or getting every word exactly right. It's all about getting the flow. Repeat the process. Continue working through the clip, pausing and repeating. If you need to, go back and listen to parts again. You're allowed to rewind and take your time. The key is to keep moving forward at a pace that's comfortable but still challenging. Focus on the details as you get better at shadowing. Pay attention to intonation, stress, and pauses. Notice how speakers emphasize certain words or pause mid-sentence. This is how you start sounding more like a native speaker, rather than someone reciting a script. As you continue practicing, your confidence will grow, and you'll find that your speaking starts to feel more fluid and natural. Just like a sponge soaking up water, your brain will start to internalize these patterns. The goal is to mimic the speaker as closely as possible, so don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way. Remember, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress. Keep going, and you'll start to see real improvements, even if it feels slow at first. It's a journey, not a race. Now that you're starting to shadow effectively, let's talk about the one thing that often holds us back from improving: confidence. It's easy to get discouraged, but don't worry, there's no reason to be afraid to make mistakes. Building confidence with each shadow. Confidence can be the biggest hurdle when it comes to speaking any new language. It's one thing to understand a language, but it's another to actually speak it out loud, especially when you're trying to mimic a native speaker. You might catch yourself thinking, what if I sound ridiculous? Or what if I make a mistake? The truth is, mistakes are inevitable, and that's perfectly fine. Here's the thing: confidence comes with practice. The more you shadow, the more comfortable you'll get with the language. At first, you might feel awkward, especially if you're mimicking an accent or intonation you're not used to. But over time, your confidence will build naturally. Start by practicing in a safe space. Talk to yourself in front of a mirror or record yourself. It may feel a bit weird, but you'll be amazed at how it helps you improve. Trust me, no one ever learned to speak a new language perfectly on their first try. The more mistakes you make, the more you'll learn, so embrace them. Another great way to boost your confidence is to practice shadowing with a friend or a partner. Having someone else listen and encourage you can make a huge difference. If you don't have someone to practice with, you can always try recording yourself and listening back. The more you hear your own progress, the more confident you'll feel about your improvement. Remember, language is all about communication. If your listener understands you, then you're doing it right. Shadowing is one of the best ways to break through that mental barrier and start speaking English with the fluency and natural rhythm of a native speaker. So, let go of the fear. Mistakes, they're just part of the process. Confidence will come as you keep practicing. Now that we've covered how to get started and build your confidence, let's shift gears a little. It's time to tackle something that can make or break your shadowing practice: pronunciation. Focus on pronunciation, not perfection. We all want to sound perfect, don't we? But here's the thing about shadowing: perfection is overrated. The goal isn't to perfect every single word, it's to sound natural and fluent, and trust me, that doesn't require being flawless. One of the beauties of shadowing is that it focuses on the rhythm and flow of the language, not just the individual words. So, instead of obsessing over making every word sound perfect, focus on making your pronunciation as close to the original speaker as possible. Let's break it down. Think about how native speakers pronounce words. They often blend sounds, shorten vowels, and contract words in ways that are impossible to replicate perfectly unless you've been speaking the language for years. But the point of shadowing is to imitate the sounds, not worry about perfect articulation. The more you listen to these natural patterns, the more your brain will begin to internalize them. It's all about rhythm. English has a natural flow to it, a stress on certain words, weak syllables that fade into the background, and intonation that rises and falls. Shadowing helps you master this, making you sound much more natural, even if your individual pronunciation isn't 100% perfect. And guess what? Native speakers won't be judging you for missing the perfect accent, they'll just be listening to the message. One more thing. Don't be afraid to exaggerate. Native speakers don't always articulate words clearly, but you'll find that by pushing yourself to overemphasize certain sounds, your natural rhythm will eventually catch up to the real thing. And if you do happen to mispronounce something, no worries, that's just part of the process. As long as the sound is close enough, you're on the right track. So stop stressing over perfect pronunciation and focus on becoming natural. At this point, you're feeling more comfortable with shadowing, and your confidence is improving. But here's the thing. You need repetition to truly master this technique. So let's dive into why repetition is so important and how it accelerates your learning. The role of repetition: it's simple. Repetition is the secret sauce of language learning. If you want to master shadowing, you need to repeat, and repeat again. Think of it like exercising a muscle. If you want stronger arms, you don't lift weights once and call it a day. You need consistent repetition to build endurance and strength. And language learning is no different. When you shadow, you're not just repeating words, you're committing those sounds, rhythms, and patterns to memory. This repetition helps you internalize the language, making it easier to recall when it's your turn to speak. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. Start by repeating the same sentences or phrases over and over until they feel natural. Don't just listen to a piece of audio once and move on. Go back to it multiple times, each time trying to get a little bit closer to the way the native speaker sounds. The key here is to delve deeper into the material, finding those small nuances in pronunciation, intonation, and timing that make the language sound smooth and authentic. You might start with simple phrases, but as you get more comfortable, increase the difficulty by shadowing longer conversations or more complex vocabulary. As you repeat, your brain will start recognizing patterns in the language, how questions are phrased, the structure of common responses, and even regional accents. But don't rush it. If you find a particular phrase or sentence difficult, don't feel like you need to move on too quickly. Take the time to get it right. This is the heart of shadowing: patience and perseverance. With repetition, your speech will become more fluid, and your pronunciation will feel less forced. Repetition also helps build your muscle memory, so speaking in English will eventually feel just as natural as speaking in your native language. Every time you repeat, you're teaching your brain to process and produce these sounds more easily. Now that you're gaining momentum with repetition, let's take it a step further and tackle something really exciting: shadowing different accents. It might sound challenging, but trust me, this will open up a whole new world for you. Shadowing different accents. English is a global language, and one of the coolest things about it is that it comes with a variety of accents. From the crisp, clear speech of American English to the charming nuances of British or Australian accents, every region adds its own flavor to the language. And guess what? Shadowing different accents will not only make you a better listener, but it will also make your speaking skills more adaptable. At first, you might be used to shadowing one specific accent, or maybe the standard American English you hear in most language learning videos. But the reality is, when you start speaking English in the real world, you'll encounter all kinds of accents. And here's the thing, it's all English. The key is learning how to understand and communicate effectively, no matter what accent you hear. So how do you incorporate multiple accents into your shadowing practice? Start small. If you're already shadowing American English, try adding a bit of British or Australian content into the mix. Focus on noticing the differences in vowel sounds, intonation, and even word choice. For example, you'll hear that British speakers might say lorry instead of truck or holiday instead of vacation. These differences, though subtle, are a big part of mastering English fluency. But it's not just about vocabulary. The beauty of shadowing various accents is that you'll begin to recognize patterns in how different speakers emphasize words or change the melody of their speech. The Australian accent, for example, has a unique rising intonation at the end of sentences, while British speakers tend to have a more distinct emphasis on syllables. And don't worry if it sounds difficult at first. In fact, shadowing different accents will help you build your listening skills. You'll train your ears to pick up on different sounds and pronunciations. This is a fantastic way to improve your comprehension as well as your ability to communicate with a variety of speakers. If you can master multiple accents, your speaking skills will become more versatile. Plus, you'll have a deeper understanding of English as it's spoken across the world. You've learned how to shadow, and now you've added different accents into the mix. But let's take this a step further. Let's see how you can apply your shadowing practice to real-life conversations. After all, the goal of shadowing is to be able to hold real, meaningful conversations in English, right? Shadowing in real-life conversations. Okay, so you've been practicing shadowing with audio clips, podcasts, and movies, and you're sounding pretty good. But how do you take everything you've learned and start using it in actual conversations? Here's the key: real-life practice. Shadowing is just the beginning, and now it's time to take those skills and start applying them in real-world situations. The beauty of shadowing is that it's not just about memorizing a list of words or perfecting a sentence. It's about internalizing the rhythm and flow of the language. So when you finally have a conversation in English, it should feel more natural. You'll notice that you're not focusing so much on the grammar rules or the exact pronunciation. Instead, you'll be more focused on communicating clearly. Let's look at how you can incorporate shadowing into real conversations. Start by finding someone to practice with, whether that's a language exchange partner, a friend who speaks English, or even a tutor. The first few conversations may feel a little nerve-wracking, but trust me, that's totally normal. You'll feel more comfortable the more you do it. When you start speaking, don't overthink it. Use the patterns and structures you've learned from shadowing. Try to mimic the intonation, stress, and rhythm you've been practicing. If you catch yourself stumbling over a word or phrase, don't panic. Just keep going. The key is to stay fluid and focused on the conversation. Remember, no one's perfect, especially when they're learning a new language. Shadowing can also help you understand the cultural context behind words and phrases, which is essential in real conversations. For instance, certain expressions or idioms might have different meanings in different English-speaking countries. Shadowing helps you get a feel for these nuances, so when you hear them in a conversation, you'll know exactly what they mean. The more you practice using shadowing in real-life conversations, the more fluent and confident you'll become. And soon enough, speaking English will feel as natural as breathing. So, you've shadowed different accents and even started using your new skills in real conversations. But here's something that many people overlook when practicing a language: memory. You might be surprised to learn that shadowing plays a key role in improving your memory, too. The link between shadowing and memory: one of the most powerful benefits of shadowing is that it helps improve your memory. Let me explain. When you shadow, you're not just repeating words, you're deeply engaging with the language. You're using both your ears and mouth, which strengthens the connections in your brain and makes it easier to remember new words and phrases. It's like you're embedding the language into your memory by making it a part of your muscle and auditory memory. You see, when we listen and speak at the same time, we're doing something called dual coding, essentially encoding the information in both visual, mouth movement, and auditory, sound, forms. This technique is proven to help people retain information longer, because it uses multiple pathways in the brain. This means that instead of just reading words off a page or memorizing vocabulary lists, you're making those words come alive in your memory. Now, what does this mean for you as an English learner? When you shadow, you're not only improving your pronunciation and fluency, you're also reinforcing the words, phrases, and expressions you use every day. This helps you retain them long term. You'll start noticing that words you've shadowed repeatedly will pop up in your speech naturally, without you having to think about them. And here's something really cool: shadowing helps you remember context. In English, many words have different meanings based on the situation they're used in. By shadowing conversations, you learn how words are used in different contexts. This makes it easier to remember not just the word, but how and when to use it. To take full advantage of shadowing for memory, try reviewing your material regularly. Repetition is key here. Go back to your favorite clips or podcasts and shadow them again after a week or two. This technique, known as spaced repetition, will help you remember the vocabulary for even longer, locking it into your long-term memory. You're making incredible progress with shadowing, but like anything worth doing, there are always a few bumps along the way. Let's talk about common mistakes that can crop up during your shadowing practice, and how to avoid them. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. It's normal to hit a few roadblocks when you're learning a new skill, and shadowing is no exception. The good news is that most of these mistakes are easy to correct once you're aware of them. One common mistake is overthinking. When you're shadowing, it's easy to get stuck on one word or phrase. You might hear a sound you're not familiar with, and then get fixated on it. The next thing you know, you're replaying the same part over and over, and it's taking up more time than it's worth. The solution? Let it go. If you don't get a word perfect, that's okay. Just keep going. It's the overall rhythm and flow you want to focus on. When you overanalyze a single word, you lose the bigger picture. Another mistake is trying to shadow too quickly. Some learners think that shadowing means speaking as fast as the native speaker. But if you try to mimic the speed of a conversation before you're ready, you might trip over your words and lose confidence. The key is to shadow at your own pace. Start slow, focus on understanding and matching the tone, then gradually pick up the speed as you get more comfortable. Also, don't underestimate the power of rest. Shadowing can be intense, and your brain might get tired after a while. When that happens, your focus and accuracy will drop. To avoid this, give yourself breaks. It's better to practice consistently, even for shorter periods, than to burn yourself out with long sessions that lead to frustration. Finally, many learners forget to expand their content. It's tempting to stick with what you know, but to keep improving, you need to challenge yourself with new material. So, don't be afraid to switch things up. Practice shadowing with different speakers, accents, and topics. This will broaden your vocabulary and make you more versatile in real conversations. So, when mistakes happen, and they will, don't panic. Embrace them as part of your learning process. The more you practice and correct yourself, the closer you'll get to sounding like a native speaker. By now, you've come a long way with shadowing, but there's one key thing to remember: shadowing builds fluency, not just vocabulary. You might think that the more words you know, the better your English will be, but that's only part of the equation. Using shadowing for fluency, not just vocabulary. We often focus on learning new words, especially when we're trying to memorize long lists of vocabulary. But here's the secret: knowing a lot of words doesn't automatically make you fluent. Fluency is about more than just vocabulary. It's about how you use those words in conversation, how smoothly you string sentences together, and how naturally you flow from one idea to the next. Shadowing helps you build that fluency. When you shadow, you're learning how to connect words naturally. You're mimicking the way that native speakers speak in real conversations, how they start sentences, how they pause for emphasis, and how they use rhythm to keep the conversation flowing. This is exactly what you need when you're speaking in English in real life. For example, you might know the word book, but the way you use that word in conversation can make all the difference. You wouldn't say, "I booked the table." You'd say, "I reserved a table." Shadowing helps you understand those nuances, teaching you not just which words to use, but how to use them like a native speaker. But here's the catch: fluency doesn't come from one practice session, it comes from consistency. Shadowing isn't a one-and-done activity. To really improve your fluency, you need to shadow regularly, focusing on conversation flow. Imagine you're reading a book and, suddenly, you're interrupted. You lose your place, right? That's what happens when we break up conversations by overthinking each word. Shadowing helps you maintain the flow. The more you practice, the more you'll find yourself thinking in English, rather than translating from your native language. And that's when the magic happens, when speaking English feels as natural as breathing. So, yes, keep building your vocabulary, but focus even more on practicing fluency. Shadowing gives you that solid base, and soon enough, you'll start seeing the difference in how you sound when you speak. You've been shadowing regularly, building your fluency, and gaining confidence, but now it's time to talk about something that's just as important: tracking your progress and staying motivated. After all, language learning can be a long journey, and it's easy to lose momentum. Let's discuss how you can stay on track and continue improving. Tracking progress and staying motivated. We've all been there, those days when it feels like you're not improving fast enough, or when you can't quite remember the phrase you learned last week. It's easy to get discouraged, but here's the truth: language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. You won't see dramatic progress every day, but if you track your growth and celebrate small victories, you'll stay motivated. Start by setting small, achievable goals. Instead of focusing on the big picture of becoming fluent, break it down into manageable tasks. For example, aim to shadow a certain number of clips each week, or master a specific accent or expression. Celebrate,